And we're back with Connie JAKAB talking about her son Ben, who is struggling with mental illness, finally getting a diagnosis that he needs some help. So when you're going through this, Connie, what were you thinking about? Like, is this the rest of my life going to be like this?
That is totally what you're thinking. This is so hard, and I don't know how I'm going to make it as well. Because when you're in crisis, you don't have time to read, to research. Even going to a doctor's appointment can seem like a really, really big deal because you're in crisis. You're just trying to survive the day.
Now, you said that your marriage was, things were really tense. You also had another son. How did you try to bring some peace and normality into the home?
You know, that's a really good question. I feel like that's God's grace. If I look back, I don't know how we did it, but I know how He did it. He really sustained us. There's no other explanation. He was the only way we made it.
So you go to a counselor, and this counselor says something to you that the light bulb went off, and it had a profound effect. Your personal life, your marriage with God. Tell me what that moment was like and what was said.
So when we brought him to the hospital, the psychologist took me aside and said, so when your son is throwing fits of rage, because that's what they would look like, depression for him was not sadness, it was anger. And I didn't know what to do with that, so I would send him to his room. So that's what I told her. I told her he could go to his room, and when he was ready to be a good boy, calm, he could come out. And she said something so powerful to me. She said, we never send the hurting away. We bring them closer. And it just hit me like, wow, that's what God does with us. That's how He heals us. He doesn't send us away to deal with our problems and come back all fixed and good. He literally, we're healed in His arms. And so for the next year, when my son would throw a fit of rage, I would stay in the same room with him. And it was hard. It was extremely uncomfortable. I mean, he is saying things that I'm not comfortable with. He's throwing things. I'm wondering if I'm going to be okay. But I would just say, son, I've got you. Nothing will separate me from you. You are so loved. You belong in our home. And it took a year of consistently doing that. And now all I'd have to do is put my arm around him, and he just melts because he knows that he's held.
Wow. He's 11 now. How's Ben doing?
He's doing great. He still has his diagnosis of anxiety and depression, but he's back in school. Because I had to homeschool him for a year and a half. He's just a normal boy. You would never guess that he has this diagnosis. And so I'm so happy. And I mean, he's 11, so now we're going into normal teenage stuff.
Yeah, those are difficult enough. Connie, what would you say to parents that are dealing with a child that is, dealing with some of the things that Ben has, and what are the encouragement and resources, I think, as well, and so important for families that are dealing with these mental health issues?
Oh, and that's huge. The person who had to change the most in our house was me. I had to get a grip on my philosophy of parenting, this idea of sending away. That wasn't working. So connection first. That child needs to know that they belong. And that's going to be so hard because it feels like we're agreeing with them. At first, when the psychologist told me that, I'm like, but I don't agree with this behavior whatsoever.
You almost feel like you're rewarding this behavior, right?
Yes, but it works. Connection first. Bring them closer. Don't let them go. Look at yourself in the mirror. I realized that my dysregulation, when my son would become angry and furious, I wouldn't become angry and furious, but my intensity would rise. And I noticed that I react. And so I had to ask God to help me to become a peaceful parent that could just sit in the middle of a storm and not move.
Wow.
And that was huge. It still is huge. I still, to this day, ask for God's grace in that, just to be an even keel parent. Bring them closer, look at ourselves in the mirror, and ask God to help us change the things that we need, because the environment is what can either escalate these things or it can just keep them under wraps, and God can do amazing work.
And there's some good resources as well.
Yeah, so we started a website actually for parents that are in crisis or just everyday parents. It's called Village. And I'm working with a psychologist, And we just wanted information to be accessible, right on the spot, and things that would be relevant for parents today.
And you're also a speaker. You've written a couple books. Tell me about those.
Yeah, so Culture Rebel, because the world has enough desperate housewives.
Okay.
I wrote that because I realized becoming a mom, I was trying to prove to the world that I could still succeed and do everything. And so it's a callback to what's important. And then When the Dead Live is all about the gospel. What is the gospel? Isaiah 61 is pretty much a wrap-up of that book right there.
Well, Connie, thank you for coming in and sharing your story with us, and I know you're going to give hope to other people. So, again, the parenting journey is not easy.
No.
Whatever cards are dealt to us, we try to, do the best we can. So, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And and the important part of the community that we have, and maybe you don't have people in your community that can help you at this point. We have wonderful prayer partners always standing by, and they can point you in the right direction. So give us a call, 1-866-273-4444. We'll be right back.